Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@ Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@ Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room A305. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room A305. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room A305. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room A305. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia.
Welcome bills that are patroned by committee members. So, and we're gonna, I'll do my, I've got 3 of those bills. Senator Peake's got 2 of them, and then there's some one-offs. Yeah, Servo, you're first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a substitute.
893's got a substitute. Okay, tell us what the bill does and tell us what the differences are in the substitute that we need to know about.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The bill basically builds on the work we did on geothermal last session. You remember last session, we passed legislation adding geothermal for heating and cooling to the RPS. We deferred the creation of a carve-out for RECs pending the meeting of a work group to make recommendations over the last year, and the work group has met. They made a report. So basically what the bill does, on lines 354 to 57, I think it creates a small 1% carve-out for geothermal in the RPS as of 2028. It sort of builds it over time up till that year. That's basically the same thing they did in Maryland. It makes the bill very similar to the law, very similar to what we did in Maryland. It gives the SCC Commission discretion to come up with a conversion formula for energy savings for purposes of calculating a REC. It sets a deficiency payment, and it also, the change, Mr. Chairman, from the original bill is it says that the utilities do not have to purchase RECs if RECs don't exist. So instead of having a penalty payment, deficiency payment, it says they don't have to make that if there's no RECs to buy. Then enactment clause number 2 asks the CEUR to provide a report on the utilization of the RECs so we can continue to monitor that. And enactment clause number 3 requires the real estate board to require training for appraisers on how to value homes with energy efficiency like geothermal. That's what the bill does.
Let me ask you, Senator Servo, 56-576, doesn't this bill touch on the Clean Economy Act? It's part of the Clean Economy Act, isn't it?
Yeah, it does. We did that last year when we added this geothermal to the RPS last year. And this piece of the bill is basically what we deferred to the work group, which has now come back and reported, which is why I put the bill in.
Does anybody have questions of Senator Servo? Senator DeStaff.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I had a couple of quick questions, if that's okay.
That's okay.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Serville, when we're trying to find these wrecks, where are we going to find them from?
Mr. Chairman, the SCC is in charge of coming up with a process to create a rec market. That's what they do.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Senator
follow-ups.
DeStaff.
So, for Senator Serville, are you familiar with how many participants in PJM track their geothermal?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not. I know that we've had some conversations about how they're going to establish the rec market. There's some residential and commercial installers that know where a lot of these systems are, and presumably the SCC will open a rate case to figure out how to track recs and come up with the rec market, and they'll contact these installers. Just want to note that according to the EIA, there are 64,700 installed residential systems in Virginia, and that doesn't include any of the commercial systems that are installed, many of which are coming online every day.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator DeStaff.
one last question. Senator Serville, are you familiar with how many states actually track geothermal?
All I know is that Maryland does. I haven't checked to see whether any other states do, but I know Mr. Habib is here representing the geothermal industry. He might have better information than I do.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'm
Senator
happy to
DeStaff.
turn my questions over to Mr. Habib, but to the former delegate Habib, but Mr. Habib. Mr. Chairman, I would like to tell Senator Serville he may want to double check with Maryland, because Maryland does not maintain a dedicated or standalone or any registry tracking geothermal installations whatsoever. And that data is as of, this morning.
Okay, we've got a disagreement on the committee. Can you educate us a little bit, Mr. Habib?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Greg Habib with Gentilloc. I'm testifying today on behalf of CSG, but also on the Geothermal Exchange Organization. Geothermal Exchange Organization is a professional association representing installers, manufacturers, et cetera. Mr. Chairman, Senator DeStaff, actually your questions are the perfect questions to ask. They go to a flaw in the introduced bill that is addressed in the sub. So tracking geothermal recs is difficult because it doesn't have the same kind of market that exists for other recs. So what we worked on with the utilities to come up with some language was, instead of having the SEC have to track them, the utilities have to issue an RFP quarterly. So they will issue RFPs. The holders of those geothermal recs will bid into that RFP process. And then to protect ratepayers, if they aren't able to procure the recs, there are no deficiency payments. So one of the major concerns, I think, that has been rightfully raised by folks are cost of compliance with various renewable energy obligations. So what this bill says is the market needs to bring the recs forward in response to an RFP. And if they are inadequate or inadequately priced, the utilities are excused from any deficiency payments. So we both will be able to track the recs that way, and we'll be able to protect the ratepayers on the back end. So we hope that was improved in the substitute. I do have some other comments to the bill, Mr. Chairman, if now would be an appropriate time to offer them.
If you've got comments, please.
Okay. Again, I'm here on behalf of CSG, the Geothermal Exchange Organization. A lot of people aren't familiar with geothermal systems. Geothermal systems give about a 50% reduction in people's electric utility consumption and costs. What we've heard a lot about this session is that demand is spiking, infrastructure is getting out of hand, compliance costs are out of hand. We've heard all those things. This is actually a solution to the problems raised by both the left side of the dais and the right side of the dais. This will reduce consumption, it reduces demand, it reduces the need for additional infrastructure, it actually lowers cost for all ratepayers, and then we've protected ratepayers on the back end with that deficiency payment exception that's in the substitute. In addition, geothermal systems are all manufactured in the U.S., and they're installed in Virginia by trained drillers, HVAC contractors, electricians, plumbers, et cetera. So we create jobs, create revenue, we drive down energy prices, we protect ratepayers on the back end, and we create a market for existing systems that doesn't exist today as a way to incentivize ratepayers.
The language you were talking about basically in the substitute, that's the language on lines 513 to 520? Is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
sir. And I do want to, we have worked with the utilities. I believe what you would hear, I'm not sure if Dominion's going to testify, they will say, we're going to continue to work on language around pricing of RECs and these other things, but I think everybody's comfortable
Okay,
with where we are today.
Delegate Habib has been for the bill. I'll give 2 minutes for other people that are for the bill. Okay, anybody?
Mr. Chairman, can I ask him a question?
Sure, you can ask a question.
Mr. Chairman, on my,
Delegate McDougal.
if I'm,
Senator McDougal, I apologize.
we were both over there once. Mr. Chairman, if I'm reading this correctly, right now, the shortfall payments for RECs for solar, wind, or other items is $75 per megawatt hour, but the shortfall payment, deficiency payment, I think is the term we're using for these geothermal systems, would be $100 per megawatt hour?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, that's what's in the substitute. The reason for that is the significant benefits to the ratepayer that they receive from this and the significant benefits to the system from this, and then standing up this market and incentivizing the deployment of geothermal. For all of the different positions on energy policy that have been enunciated this session from this dais and others, we should want to incentivize geothermal deployment as broadly as we can. And so, yes, that is set higher. Again, though, keeping in mind, the ratepayer is protected if they can't procure those RECs because there's that out clause, they can't procure them. And it's a ramp up to just a 1% carve out, so it's a very small part of the overall RPS.
Okay, does that answer your question, Senator McDougal? Okay, we go to Senator McPike.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt the substitute to get it before us.
Okay. Motion and a second to adopt the substitute. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, 2 minutes for those people that are in favor. And I'm going to give the other side 3 minutes since our Delegate Habib has spoken. Yes, please.
Mr. Chairman, Jason Asher with the Mid-Atlantic Pipe Trades, and I'm actually just happy that we're seeing some renewable energy that involves pipes getting put up, and I thank the Senator for bringing it up. We support.
Thank you.
Lou Spencer, UA Local 5, Plumbers and Gas Fitters. Mr. Chairman, committee members, we support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay, 3 minutes for those people that are opposed. Who's opposed to the legislation? Okay, we've got some opposition. The Darth Vader has come forth.
Mr. Chairman, just want to clarify something. I know it's being used that this actually protects ratepayers because it gets rid of the deficiency payment. Let's understand that this forces the purchasing of RECs, which there's a cost to. So you're not all you're doing is saying we're going to protect the ratepayers if they don't find something to spend the money on, but you are forcing Dominion to buy RECs, which basically is a cost that will pass on to the ratepayer dollar for dollar, which the ratepayer will receive no added benefit for. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you. Senator Surville.
this bill doesn't change that Dominion or anybody has to buy RECs. They have to buy RECs anyway. This just says if there are geothermal RECs that happen to be available, they have to buy those instead of solar. So if this bill doesn't pass, they're still going to have to buy the solar RECs. I'm not really clear what that objection has to do with this bill. This bill doesn't require the purchase of any additional or new RECs.
The deficiency payments for solar RECs, would they be $100?
No, the deficiency payment for solar is right here above that in the bill. I believe it's $75. And again, if it's not available, they don't have to pay anything.
Okay. Okay, was a motion to report, is there a second? Are there, Senator DeSteph?
Speaking to the bill real quick, we focus a lot on affordable housing here during this session and the last 5 sessions since I've been here. And I'm a big proponent of geothermal, but I can afford it. Geothermal costs anywhere from 50 to 150 times what it costs to put an electric heat pump in. And and when you look at digging wells, when you look at, which is $40,000 to about $60,000, when you look at the increased cost of plumbing, you look at the increased cost of the unit, it does save 50%. But when you look at what's the return on investment over time, you're looking at 30 or 40 years before you get that return on investment. And, Mr. Chairman, I think that this should be something that folks who can afford it would do it, but as soon as we start putting it in this way, this turns into a huge challenge when we're talking affordable housing and we're starting to really push something like this. And then back on the cost for the deficiency payments, I still don't understand why we would go $100 for this, $75 for solar or wind. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Chairman,
Senator Surville.
I'm not sure where the senator's numbers come from. Those are not the current numbers at all. A geothermal system typically costs about 3 times what it costs to install a conventional HVAC system. Under the IIJA, whatever it's called, the federal act, tax credits will pay for 1/3 of the cost of the system. So if it's 3 times as much, you're going to pay, say the system, say it's a $30,000 system. HVAC costs you 10, the tax credits get you 10, you recover the next 10 in about 8 years, and if these recs pass, that you recover it even faster. And so over the lifetime of the system, you save a ton of money over even just 10 or 15 or 20 years. So I'm not sure, I think the senator's numbers are a little outdated. Fairfax County is actually installing a massive one of these systems in a massive community center we have because the economics are actually so good with the recent tax policy changes that happened at DC. And so I'm not sure the senator's up to date on those numbers.
Okay, unless there's, Senator DeStefano, are you back on the board?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to respond to that. And I've just put in one system for a building that was 30,000 square feet. I put another one in for a building that's 10,000 square foot. And in my personal residence, I have 9 geothermal units, some of which I've replaced in the last year. But all of the larger systems I've done in the last 18 months. So I'm very familiar with the cost. I'm very, very familiar with the cost to procure, to install, the trades necessary to do it. And I can even tell you how many square foot of PEX, or how many linear foot of PEX pipe you need for every 10,000 square foot of geothermal. It's about 2.5 miles. So I'm very, very familiar with what the costs are, what the operating costs are, and I've done the complete analysis on the procurement side. Thank you.
Okay. We've heard from all the sides. We've had a motion. Unless there's another motion, please open the roll. Motions to report.
Ayes 9, no 6.
Okay, thank you. Senator Eben. 1058.
10:58, there's a substitute.
Move the substitute be adopted.
Thank you. You can drop it right there.
Mr. Chair, did the substitute get
The
adopted?
substitute, been a motion and a second to adopt the substitute. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the substitute's before you for 1058. It's now a Section 1 bill.
Thank you.
So Senator Eben.
Yeah, we were having a problem in Alexandria. We're trying to be good energy stewards, and particularly in our schools. And they found when they did some solar installations that there was some unexpected costs and delays. At one school, at our new campus of our high school, the school systems provider required fiber connection directly to the substation with an unexpected cost of $1.37 million and a delay of 20 months. And at an elementary school, Douglas MacArthur, we faced an unexpected cost of $104,500 and a projected additional 14 months to complete the integration of the solar program. So that originally we weren't going to charge schools to hook them up, but I think we came up with a more realistic solution, which is dealing with interconnection costs. Currently, when a new solar project connects to the grid and requires a technology upgrade for the substation, they're required to pay the entire cost in order to interconnect. None of the existing projects already in the substation had to pay that cost when they connected, and none of the projects that come behind it would pay that cost until no other upgrades were required. So this bill, the substitute that you just adopted, would require the SEC to establish separate cost-sharing programs for jurisdictional, private, and non-jurisdictional public customers. The interconnection costs for new solar projects would be spread out among all solar projects that come online after the bill takes effect, whether it's in Dominion or APCO territory. And this would only apply to solar projects between 50 kilowatt and 2 megawatts.
The cost would be spread out on a monthly basis throughout the life of the project. It's affixed to this last project problem and recognizes that all of these distributed resources share in the benefits of these grid projects, regardless when they interconnect. When similar language was adopted in another body, it was supported by Dominion and an array of allies from the environmental community. And that is the bill. I have someone here from I think I have Lauren Gilbert from Alexandria.
I want to ask somebody from the State Corporation Commission if there's an action pending right now before the State Corporation Commission involving the issue of interconnection fees. Does this touch some litigation that's currently before the commission? And give us the status of that litigation.
Hi, committee. Mike Szynski with the State Corporation Commission. So staff just submitted a report in the, we call the 69 docket. It's basically a rulemaking, updating the regulations associated with interconnections.
Okay. And who are the parties to that litigation?
It's more of a rulemaking, not a litigation.
Okay.
But we've got all the utilities and other stakeholders.
Okay. Well, have you looked at the substitute?
Yes.
Okay. The substitute consistent with what you all are doing?
No.
Not exactly the same thing.
Okay. Senator Peake wants to be heard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question to the patron.
Senator Peake.
All right. I'm reading this, Senator Evan, and I got to tell you the language is a little bit confusing. Interconnect, a triggering project, distribution, jurisdiction, all of that. Is the upshot of this that if someone is doing a solar project above 50 watts, that whoever's doing the project ain't going to pay for it all, that it's going to be spread out over whoever are the ratepayers in that area?
No, it would be spread out among the people who are connecting.
The way I read it down on line 17, it's spread the cost of all qualifying upgrades among all participating projects based on the kilowatt hour output of each participating project. Is that the right
That's
place?
correct.
But then on 19, Mr. Chair,
And Senator Peake.
it says participating projects are recovered from jurisdictional customers. And costs attributed to non-jurisdictional participating projects are recovered from non-jurisdictional customers. Mr. Chair, question to the patron. What are jurisdictional customers and non-jurisdictional customers?
I'm going to ask counsel, but my understanding was that would be like local government projects and non-local government projects. I don't know if I have that correct.
Mr. Chair, Senator Eben, I believe that is correct. The commission could possibly speak to that as well, the difference between jurisdictional and non-jurisdictional.
Well, that's what they're going to.
Okay, I have an expert.
You have an expert from Dominion. Was this language you all requested?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Christine Noonan with Seven Hills on behalf of Dominion. We did not request this language, but we very much appreciate the patron addressing our concerns. We think this is a constructive vehicle to move this issue forward. And to answer the question about jurisdictional and non-jurisdictional, jurisdictional customers are those who are subject to the commission's oversight, and non-jurisdictional customers are those who are not. So governments, state, local, federal government, and schools.
Okay. Senator Peake, that answer your question? Senator Peake.
So it means it's not being passed on to the general ratepayer.
Mr. Chair, Senator Peake, I will submit and agree with you that the language around participating projects is ambiguous, and I think part of what the question that you have is something that the commission will have to grapple with as part of their rulemaking. I think the intention is that not all ratepayers would pay for the costs of interconnection, so not all jurisdictional or non-jurisdictional, but those who are benefiting, the types of projects that would be interconnecting.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Surville.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure the SEC was quite done with our questions, if they could come back up.
Okay.
So my recollection is that this interconnection fight has been going on for probably 2 years now. And there's been this rulemaking or litigation pending for that time. And I think what I heard you say was that staff just came out with a report on how to allocate costs for interconnection, and that report is pending. It hasn't been approved by the commission, and that this bill is inconsistent with the report staff just issued. So I'm trying to understand how it's inconsistent and what that means if we throw this thing in at the last minute after a 2-year process. Does that mean you're going to have to go restart the whole process all over again and redo it for everybody? How does it shift costs? I'm trying to understand what that means. You just sort of walked away after saying, yeah, it's not consistent.
So, Mr. Chair, Senator Surville, so yeah, there were a lot of issues at play with the interconnection process. So the report that just came out from staff did not directly identify who pays for these particular interconnection costs. There were a number of other different issues at play, and still remains issues at play, like how these costs are, how they're allocated to the different parties. So the staff report just has updates, going from memory, lots of different comments were provided during the rulemaking to identify just again, a myriad of different topics. So like material modification rules, different rules about IEEE 1547. So really get kind of weedy interconnection engineering type topics. So we did not get into the direct transfer trip, dark fiber issues fully. So which I think is what these costs are related to.
Senator Surville, you have more questions?
Yeah, I do. I still don't, the question that I don't think you answered was, if we throw this into the mix after this 2-year process, what does that do for finalizing this process that people have been screaming at us to try to finalize by statute for the last 2 years? I mean, people have been asking us to weigh in. We've been telling them, no, SEC's got this proceeding going on. Let them finish their work. Now you're almost done, and we're throwing this in. I'm trying to understand how that affects what it is you're trying to do to give people certainty. So not just school projects, but other solar projects around the entire Commonwealth can actually interconnect, because they can't interconnect right now because of the cost. They've been waiting for this to finalize.
Right, and of course, I can't speak for the commission, but right now, again, with that staff report, it doesn't address these specific costs. So that's something that still has yet to be remedied. And so that's where I do feel like the bill here is something different.
This bill speaks to an issue you've not covered.
Right, speaks to an issue that's not fully addressed in the most recent staff report.
Okay, Senator Surville, is that, you have more questions, or?
Yeah, I still just don't even understand what the SEC is, Mr. Chairman, because I thought they were doing this proceeding to figure out how to deal with these interconnect costs, and I guess they were talking about engineering stuff and not interconnect. Well, I'm trying to understand when this proceeding is going to end. We've been telling people for the last 2 years who've been dying to do interconnection projects, just wait for the SEC to finish, and it sounds like you're never going to finish. So I'm trying to understand if this makes it take another 2 years. Does this matter at all? I'm not getting a lot of clarity from you on how does this affect when people are going to have market certainty to know when they can plug their solar project in so we can start these investments.
So, Mr. Chair, Senator Surville, so some of the items that we tried to get to in the SCC rulemaking was to try to identify ways to still let Dominion, in this case, have their direct transfer trip, but then find other ways to keep the cost down while still using that system. So, Dominion right now is piloting a study to have dual cellular, which would reduce or eliminate essentially the need to have fiber optic communication. So that would significantly cut the cost down. So it's things like that. There are other things that Dominion has been looking at related to that communication protocol to try to keep the cost down. But again, these things have been taking a lot of time.
Okay, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, I didn't hear any answers to my question. I'll just move on.
Senator McPike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My take is that they can still proceed, and this would be a new component for consideration as outlined in the bill I think we'll hear probably from other speakers for and against, but, I think this appears to be a separate issue is what I'm hearing.
Okay. That's kind of what I heard, but I don't always hear right. We have 3 minutes per side, 3 minutes for people that are for it, minutes for people that are against it. Come on.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Lauren Gilbert, Advantage Strategies on behalf of Alexandria City Public Schools. We want to thank the senator for bringing this forward. Alexandria City Public Schools has been faced with unexpected costs and delays that are a result of interconnection requirements. We've heard from other school systems, including Prince William and Fairfax, who I have permission to speak on behalf of, that they've also experienced the same issue in regards to costs and delays. We look forward to continuing to meet the city's net zero energy requirements, and we appreciate the senator for bringing this forward. I also believe, in case they're not here, I have permission to voice support from the city of Alexandria as well.
Thank you very much. Next.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Josephus Allman with the Southern Environmental Law Center. I want to thank Senator Eben for bringing this bill. We support, and I just wanted to answer an earlier question. There's the rulemaking going on, which Mr. Szynski was referencing, that does not get into cost or cost allocation. There's also a separate proceeding that was filed on November 15th by Dominion, and that is the evidentiary proceeding where the commission will determine whether the use of direct transfer trip, a specific type of interconnection upgrade, is reasonable and prudent. We just got the scheduling order for that case a couple weeks ago, so we're expecting that decision by November of this year, 2025. And so that's why you see in the bill a July 1st, 2026 date for the SEC to implement these rules. We wanted to give plenty of time for that proceeding to play out. And then whatever costs the SEC determines are reasonable in that proceeding, they would then use to spread along this framework.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Blair St. Ledger Olson with the Virginia League of Conservation Voters. We do support this bill, and also because this bill just turned into Delegate Tran's bill from the House side, I have been authorized by the Virginia Education Association to offer their support of it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, Mr. Chairman, Keith Martin with Appalachian Power. We appreciate the senator's willingness to work with us to address some of our concerns, and we'd like to work with him as it goes along the process.
Okay. Thank you very much. Next.
Mr. Chair, Chrissy Noonan on behalf of Dominion Energy, and we support the bill moving through the process.
Okay. You've got people online that want to speak, and thank you, Christy. Thanks.
Shane Riddle, turn on your camera and unmute yourself, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Okay. Good afternoon. You got a minute.
Mr. Chairman,
You've got 1 minute. Come on.
Mr. Chairman, apologies for not being there in person. The VEA supports Senate bill.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Is there anybody else? Okay. People that are in opposition, please. Come on up. Glenn, you want to be heard on this?
Mr. Chairman, I will tell you the administration was opposed to the initial underlying bill. I'm trying to get through the substitute online. The only concern that I think we would still continue to have is the transfer of costs to other projects and how that ultimately could impact ratepayers if some of those projects are on a PPA that ends up going to a ratepayer and ends up in their bills, Mr. Chairman. But
Okay.
we'll go through more.
Thank you. Understand that. Senator McPike.
Question for Mr. Davis. Would you agree the senator's bill, as written, would also encourage the development of significant rooftop in Northern Virginia? And we've had a lot of debate in this chamber over the conflicts of agriculture communities and rural communities. This is one of those things that would spur and maybe pull some of those projects to Northern Virginia, to his district, to other people's districts to help resolve some of that pressure. Would you agree that this would help?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would say that anytime you get rid of costs associated with a project, you incent more of those projects. So yes, I would think that this would cause more rooftop solar and other types of solar developments.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator McDougal.
Would Mr. Davis not
Mr. Vader.
not agree that we could take care of having more solar in Northern Virginia if we made that bill with planning districts equitable across the state. So each planning district had to have the same amount of energy
Out
production.
of order. Senator McDougal, you're out of order. You're talking about another piece of legislation.
We were just talking about how you get solar on the rooftops.
We're
and so
focused on
said there's
1058
other
right
ways.
I would agree, thank you.
Senator, we've got 1058 before us, okay? Is there anybody else? Senator Evan, do you know?
Yeah, just to wrap up, I'm committed to continuing to work with Dominion APCO and the administration if they have further input to improve this through the process. Second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. It's been seconded. Unless there are other motions, please open the roll.
Ayes 9, no 6.
Ayes 9, no 6. Okay, Peak, you're next, but Crike's only got one bill, and so I'm going to let him go next, and you got two. Okay, McPike, you got a bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
1316, and I want to know how this relates to the bill we just passed of Servels.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So where this differentiates from the senator from Eastern Fairfax.
You have a substitute?
Yeah, I move the substitute.
Okay, got a motion and a second on the substitute. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the substitute's before you, and it's being handed out right now. Please tell us what this bill does and how it relates to Servels' bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What this does is simply add geothermal as an electricity generating source into the renewable energy portfolio standard. This substitute before you simply clarifies the correct definition, and that's what it does. We don't have right now geothermal as an electricity producing source in Virginia, but if there's exploration of the geology that works for it, we want to make sure it includes it. I think there's some areas that may be open to possibilities, and this is an opportunity for another renewable source out there that may help different regions, Mr. Chairman.
So that's the language on 110 and 111? That's it?
That's correct. For the substitute, it's simply picking up the correct definition and adds it into the renewable energy portfolio.
Does anybody have any questions for Senator McPike, Senator DeSteph? I'm sure you do.
Just one, Mr. Chairman, and I actually like the underlying bill, and I think I like this one more because under line 329 and 330, it truly talks about that the resources will be located in the Commonwealth or physically located within the PGM region. But I think if we're gonna push something and we're gonna buy RECs, those RECs should be generated in the Commonwealth.
Okay, thank you very much. We did, yes. Okay, 2 minutes aside, people that are for this bill, come on up.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Blair St. Ledger Olson with the Virginia League of Conservation Voters. We thank the patron for accepting our amendments, and with that, we support the bill.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Lillian Anderson with Virginia Conservation Network, and we also support this bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Bob Shippey with Sierra Club, we support the bill.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Victoria Higgins, Chesapeake Climate Action Network Action Fund, we all support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, Lou Spencer, UA Local 5, Plumbers and Gas Fitters, we support the bill.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Jason Asher with Mid-Atlantic Pipe Trades, we support the bill.
Thank you very much. Okay, anybody else? Is there anybody opposed? Okay, do I have a motion? Motion made and seconded. Unless there are other motions, please open the roll.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Ayes 15, no 0. The bill's reported. Senator Peak, do you want to do them in numerical order?
Let's do the 1076, yes.
1076 bill. Okay, do you have a substitute?
I know that there has been talk of a substitute and all kinds of talk going on. So what I want to proceed on today in front of the committee, Mr. Chairman, is my 1076 securitization bill as introduced, which is pages 1 through 8, which deals with securitization only. And Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I know there's a lot of talk. There's been a companion bill in the lower chamber down the hall or below us that started out as a securitization. We've been taking in input from all different involved folks. They've amended theirs on the House side. They did a full substitute today. I am still working through a lot of the things in that bill. It went from 8 pages to 52 pages and has all kinds of different things in it. I'm still trying to work through and see what we can agree and not agree or what is possible. So I would like to go forward with my initially submitted 1 through 8 securitization, which addresses the needs of ratepayers in the Appalachian Power AEP district of Virginia. And so this securitization bill, 1 through 8, as originally submitted, will allow APCO to, in essence, refinance its assets to the tune of $60 million a year to reduce rates for its ratepayers. And over the course of time for this securitization, will save upwards of about $900 million to $1 billion a year. I think there are going to be significant amendments to this bill to bring it more in compliance with the House version that will bring even more savings to the ratepayers. But that, we had Senator Hackworth and Senator Pitt.
Do you have amendments in this committee to bring it in compliance?
That correct. I am not going to move any amendments today.
Okay.
And ask that we go forward with the original 1 through 8 securitization only. That way, as going forward, it will give us the opportunity to negotiate with the House and come up with a plan. SEC is still reviewing some of the provisions that were put in the House plan today that are changing it to 2-year or 3-year reviews. We need to get their input to see how that's going to work. So at this point, I would like to go forward with the simple version of the bill until we see.
Senator Eben has questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, the idea is to allow them to get credit to spread costs out to ratepayers over a longer time period. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Senator Eben, yeah, they're going to refinance their assets, take some of that money, $60 million a year, roughly. Some of it's to go for Helene, storm damage, and it's not nearly enough savings. There's no question, Mr. Chair, Senator Eben. It is merely a start, and but it is going to bring it down some. But this was the start, and I think we need to work and make sure that we get them down more.
And
Senator Eben.
To follow up, Mr. Chair, I wanted to just ask Senator Peake, would you be resisting any efforts to change this bill to take APCO out of the Virginia Clean Economy Act later in the process, or that's not your goal here, right?
Not in this bill. That's a separate bill that I think is really going to go far.
But you're going to try and keep this bill just a securitization bill, Mr. Chair, and not like strike Affordable Energy Act language or that sort of thing?
Mr. Chair, yes, Senator Eben, yeah, this is strictly a bill based on what I think is going to be the law in the Commonwealth going forward for a pretty good while to help reduce their rates. APCO customers have just been getting killed the last 2 or 3 years. And it is just it's a well-known phenomenon. As I said, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Senator Hackworth, Senator Pillion, out of desperation for the people in their area, brought what in essence would have been deregulation bill, which is too soon to do that. So I have had this securitization bill, which is a start. But this has nothing to do with getting them out of the Clean Economy Act. I don't anticipate that happening anytime soon, although I have a bill. If you want to pass it today, we can do that. That'll be the next bill.
Wolf is talking Little Red Riding Hood up here.
Yeah, thank you.
But this is the start. And I'll just say, I think y'all have all heard it. We heard it from all the people that submitted writings in Hackworth's bill. This is going to bring it down some. I think we can do more to bring it down more.
Senator Stanley wants to throw you a lifeline.
No,
I don't think
actually,
he does, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you. How much is this going to save the ratepayer per month?
It depends on the ratepayer, and it depends on how much they use.
Hold on, and for how long?
I think for upwards of 10 years. I mean, some are $85, some are $58, some are $21 a month. It's a start. This is not.
Senator Stanley.
So if somebody has a $600, $700 bill, $800, you've dropped it $50.
In fact, looking at some, Mr. Chairman, Senator Stanley, some of the things, they had an $858 bill. We're knocking off 85. We're saving them 10%. which is better than going up 10%.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Stanley.
And so during this time when the securitization occurs and over this 10-year period that you're saying, you're also telling us, this committee, that APCO will not seek any rate increases for 10 years? So that $50 to $80 savings will continue forever?
Mr. Chairman.
Or will it be
Senator
gobbled up by some other rate increase somewhere down in the future?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Peake.
Senator Stanley. I'm not here on behalf of APCO. I'm not making any promises. I don't represent APCO. I'm here for this bill, which is all I can do this session to do something to bring down rates. This is all I got. Hackworth's bill on deregulation is dead. There's no other instrument in session this year. This is the last committee meeting that will do anything to reduce APCO ratepayers' bills this session. This is it. It's all we got.
Of course, there are bills coming over from the House. And you will agree that this committee will meet again to consider those bills?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do. The only bill that we have from the Senate, which therefore gives us good authority to bargain with the House on the bills going forward, and I anticipate doing that and bringing even more savings. Mr. Chairman.
Okay, are there additional questions for Senator Peake? Okay, 3 minutes for people that are for the bill.
Just like all my other bills.
3 minutes for people that are opposed to the bill. 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
All right, move report.
So APCO's not going to speak, not going to be heard?
We're afraid they'll mess it up, Mr. Chairman.
Come on up, pork chop.
Please, oh, no. Recess.
Put your hands together.
Mr. Chairman, Ron Jefferson, representing Appalachian Power Company. We don't have a position on the bill. We do look forward to continue to work with the patron on the bill and do the things that he promised you today. Thanks, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman. Mr.
Senator
Jefferson,
Stanley.
we come back a quick sec? Can you answer Mr. Chairman?
Senator Stanley.
Can you answer the question that I asked Senator Peake, which is, all right, let's assume it drops the 10%. That will never be gobbled up for those 10 years that you talked about the securitization process, where by rate increases, APCO will not seek another rate increase to securitize assets. And we can at least guarantee this for our ratepayers for 5, 6, 7 years. How many years?
Mr. Chairman, so in the response that the patron made up, customers will see an immediate reduction in their bill. Okay, now we will securitize this over a 15 to 20-year period, just like we did fuel securitization. But once we securitize it, and once the proceeds come to the company, that will immediately reduce customer rates. So that's how it works.
Am I wrong when we had securitization bills before, they were sought by the utilities? Is that right?
2 years ago, you passed law securitizing the fuel.
But that was sought by the utilities.
For both utilities. That's
okay,
correct.
and this one was not sought by you or your company.
With the difference in this one and the fuel is this one is going to securitize assets that the company owns. As a result of that, this one, the company is actually giving up earnings because these are rate-based assets. So we'll be giving up earnings. And then also we had two major storms that are not currently in rates. We had Helene and the ice storm just at the first of this year. And those are not currently in rates. So we're going to securitize those as well. And that too will prevent another increase with our customers once we securitize.
Securitization doesn't mean that it's forgiven, the rates are forgiven. It just means it spreads it out a little bit longer.
In this case, the customers could stand to benefit of a lower interest rate as you look at preferred bonds, as well as a guaranteed lower rate because you're going to be spreading it out over a number of years.
Okay, thank you so much. Senator Stanley.
One more question from Mr. Jefferson, who I respect greatly. Is it not true, though, that APCO received or sought a rate increase of about $95 million last year? So this wouldn't even offset what that total increase was for last year, would it? This $50 million savings, as Senator Peake stated.
Mr. Chairman, as the patron has indicated, this is the first step. There's a lot of conversation going on that's going to bring even some additional reductions to this. We look forward to working with the patron on it as it continues forward. I hope the bill will continue forward so we can work on it.
Thank you so much. Senator Peake, you want to close it out?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the first step. It's a start. We're going to have the House bill, which is going to bring in more savings. We just need time to work through it. So I would appreciate the committee letting us move forward on this to bring some relief, however small it is.
Okay. You have a motion.
Move to report.
A motion and a second to report. Are there other motions? Open the roll.
Ayes 11, no 0, abstentions 4.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right.
Okay, Senator Pike,
McPike.
Peake, you've got one more bill.
McPeak, okay. This is 1077, my Virginia Clean Economy Act. This is the one, Mr. Chairman, Senator Abbott, that would get APCO out of the Clean Economy Act and Dominion. This is repealing various portions of the Virginia Clean Economy Act. Really lines up 95 through 113, which take us out of the 2030, 2050 guidelines. It removes the carbon dioxide requirements and removes the solar, wind, whatever you.
Okay, I think we have it, but there might be some questions on
Yeah.
either side of me.
And that's,
Are there people in favor of this legislation? Okay. Darth Vader comes forth.
Mr. Chairman, obviously it's no surprise the administration's in favor of this legislation. I've stood up here a couple of times and told you the largest threat to Virginia's economic and job growth in the future are the mandates of Virginia's Clean Economy Act. It is actually strangling our economy as we look forward. The compliance cost of the RPS alone is over $2 billion between 2026 and 2030. Those are not made-up numbers. They're not debatable numbers. They're the truth. Also, we know that we have a 20-gigawatt dispatchable generation deficit. Once again, not made up. It's the truth. The Virginia Clean Economy Act actually puts us in a quagmire when it comes to generating new dispatchable power because of what it does to natural gas and prevents us from building the new natural gas long-term as we start looking decades in the future. And that's what we have to do to continue growing our economy. So that's why we stand against this today. We think the best way to grow our economy and have an increasingly clean future, Mr. Chairman, is to eliminate the Virginia Clean Economy Act and continue to move forward on an all-of-the-above approach.
Chairman, I have a question from Mr.
Senator Servell's got a question for you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm just kind of curious about the dissonance, the dissonance that exists between what the governor says and what the Director of Energy just said. My recollection, I was trying to pull it up in the State of the Commonwealth address, which I have right here. But my recollection, I think you just said that the VCEA is strangling the Virginia economy and dragging us down and causing all these problems. We sort of State of the Commonwealth address where the governor said everything was wonderful and great, the economy's booming, everything's wonderful in this state. How do you think our economy is doing so wonderfully if the VCEA is strangling us?
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the question. It is, if I misspoke, my apologies. It's the largest threat to economic growth in the future as we get closer to the 2035, 2040 scenario, when both PJM and Dominion have not forecasted a way for us to close this deficit of power.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Senator, I've got some people in queue here, Senator Stanley. You can be third in queue. Okay, Senator Abbott.
Yeah, for Mr. Davis. So on lines 217 to 235 and 331 to 350, these items that are stricken relate to coal ash, cleanup or cost recovery, and we're not part of the Clean Economy Act. So does the administration not support cleaning up the coal ash?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I would just address Mr. Adam. I do have a substitute, Senator Evan.
You've got a substitute.
So I do.
We've been talking about the original bill here.
Well, the original bill does still strike the
45 minutes later, Senator Peake tells us he has a substitute.
I fixed the coal ash.
Got a motion. All in favor of adopting the substitute, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, we've got a substitute.
So we took out the parts, see, coal ash and a lot of those other things were prior to, not a part of the Virginia Clean Economy Act. So my substitute as of February 3rd, 9:50 a.m., took out all of that stuff.
It's a 47-page substitute.
Well, I have a further question.
Senator Eben.
So I will just say that we really narrowed it down. We took out all of that stuff, to clean it, the coal ash, all of those things.
So you're saying the 30
It's
bills,
really-
now 47 pages is not,
Well, this is the original Clean Economy Act, and what mine does is it's striking out various portions of it, like lines 95 through 113, which are the 2031, the 2040, the 2050, 417, 423, which strikes out the getting rid of carbon. So I really did clean it up, Mr. Chairman. Senator Eben, you were correct. We do want to get rid of coal ash. We do want to do those things. I really cleaned up with this substitute to focus on the mandates of the 2035, 2040, 2050, the all renewable energy, the no carbon energy.
Okay,
and
Senator.
I've added in nuclear. So that is all this substitute does.
Just to follow up and be clear, in your other bill, you had language stricken allowing for utilities to recover costs associated with projects necessary to comply with state or federal environmental laws predating the VCCA.
Yes,
Is
that
that
was-
gone?
that
Is
is-
that still in here?
No, it is not intended to be. That was a mistake.
okay. Is that your question? Senator Stanley's got a question next.
Okay.
That would be for Darth Vader.
Come on in, Darth.
So if this bill became law, how much would that save, just in the same way I was asking APCO, how much would that save the ratepayers per month in their electric bill, and for how long?
Senator Stanley, we'd have to do some analysis for you on that. What I can tell you is we're talking $10 billion over 10 years in just RPS compliance costs alone. There's significantly more money in other parts of the CS compliance that they will save. And as you look forward at other states, there's a reason why Maryland and New York are looking at walking their clean emissions mandates backwards. And that's why we would ask that we do the same in Virginia.
Mr. Chairman.
Was that your, Senator Stanley?
So we were talking about a rate reduction, $50-60 on 50 million. You're talking about a $10 billion reduction, which would be passed on to the ratepayer, correct?
Yes, sir. Every dollar of that $10 billion will be passed on to the ratepayers. And that's just Dominion territory alone, Senator Stanley. The APCO territory, we're still doing the modeling for, and we'll have those numbers shortly.
Mr. Chairman, final question.
Senator Stanley.
And that would also include, would it not, Mr. Davis, that $500 million on the rack penalties that were being assessed to these monopolies, these utilities, and that would be also passed along to the ratepayer? That was $500 million a year, I think, $500 million almost?
Yes, sir.
And so you combine that all up.
Senator
you're
Stanley, do you-
Thank you. One final last question. So, Mr. Chairman,
Senator Stanley.
so that would be a significant reduction in the monthly bills paid by everybody for their electricity, whether it be in APCO territory or Dominion territory or a co-op. Is that correct?
APCO territory and Dominion territory, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Senator McPike's got questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would Mr. Davis agree that the Commonwealth has invested billions of dollars in its ports?
I'm sorry, and it's what?
Mr. Chairman, would Mr. Davis agree that Virginia's taxpayers have invested billions of dollars in our ports?
In our ports, yes, sir.
Would the senator, would the
Senator McPike.
Mr. Chairman, would Mr. Davis agree that international trade and its status is incredibly important to those billions and billions that we've invested as taxpayers?
Yes, sir.
Senator McPike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would the gentleman agree that any significant trade to its trade would threaten those taxpayer dollars to our trade?
Any significant, I
ports.
apologize, any significant, was that?
Change to international trade would significantly impact the billions of taxpayer dollars we've invested in our ports.
Thanks.
Well, we invested the money in the port, so we're not going to lose that it's there, but significant change to international trade would definitely impact our economy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Follow-up question.
Senator McPike.
Would the gentleman also agree that the impact to our economy of our federal workforce is also incredibly important in the tens and tens of billions of dollars?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No further questions.
Okay, the bill's before the committee. Got a motion?
Some people want to speak against my bill.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize. Are there, I didn't, 3 minutes for those people that are in favor. Well, Senator or Mr. Davis has already spoken, so 2 minutes for those people that are in favor of the bill. 3 minutes for those people that need to speak against this bill. Well, just 2 minutes then. Just identify yourself.
Minute and a half.
Just identify ourselves?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Victoria Higgins, Chesapeake Climate Action Work Action Fund, we oppose the bill. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Blair St. Ledger Olson with Virginia League of Conservation Voters, we also oppose the bill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask Ms. Olson a quick? Oh, never, okay.
Ms. Senator Eben.
Just, we keep hearing about all these savings. Does the Clean Economy Act, is that not estimated to save us $118.5 billion, the ratepayers?
Yes, in fuel costs. That is the estimated savings over the life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There are ultimately disagreements, I guess. One side says we save money, one side says it costs money. So,
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Josephus Allman with the Southern Environmental Law Center. We oppose this bill.
thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Greg B. from Gentlock on behalf of Advanced Energy United. Take a look at lines 639 through 656. This bill now deems in the public interest only utility planning and development activities for new nuclear facilities. So all those costs are now in the public interest for planning new nuclear facilities. There's no kind of cap or anything that I can see in here, and offshore wind. And so when they talk about capping costs, this is not about capping costs. This is about shifting costs to particular types of generation resources. It's why no matter where you sit on the Clean Economy Act, you should oppose this bill.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Lillian Anderson with Virginia Conservation Network. We also oppose this bill.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, Christine Noonan on behalf of Dominion Energy, and we respectfully oppose the bill. It would make it harder to build solar, wind, and storage, and we need all of the resources in Virginia, especially when you're at a peak.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Bob Shippey with Sierra Club, we oppose the bill.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Peter Anderson with Appalachian Voices, we also oppose the bill.
Thank you. Okay, I heard a motion to report. I didn't hear. Do you want to finish, Senator Peake?
I'll just say, we've been talking about energy since Friday when Senator Servell started talking about how people killed all the woolly mammoths to eat. And we're continuing today. It is, and Senator Marsden had the get-together this summer. We clearly cannot provide the energy that the Commonwealth needs to go into to continue the rest of this century with our data centers and all our other requirements with wind and solar. And that's the problem with the Virginia Clean Economy Act. It says we got to have everything's got to be renewable, which is mainly just wind, solar, and a little bit of water right now. And we're not going to get there in 2050. And we've got to do something. And this is a start. We're practicing.
Okay, thank you. I heard a motion to report. I didn't hear a second.
Second.
Got a motion, been a motion to report. It's been seconded. Had a substitute motion to PBI. That's been seconded. The substitute motion is first. So all in favor of PBI vote green. Open the roll, please. Thank you.
Ayes 9, no 6.
Okay, I've got 3 bills and I'll ask Senator Lucas to take over.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make a quick point of clarification. When we were discussing geothermal, I said it was 50 to 100%, or I may have said times more expensive. It's actually 50 to 100% more expensive. So I want to make sure I clarified that. I did not want to be quoted or misquoted on that one.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank
I think we got it, but thank you.
It makes a lot more sense, Mr. Chair.
Please turn your attention to Senate Bill 1192. Senator Dean.
1192 is a simple bill. We talked a little bit about schools solar. This legislation makes a very small change to the state's renewable portfolio standard, but will have a big impact on increasing the number of schools that can install solar. Right now, Dominion has to purchase 1% of its renewable energy certificates from smaller projects like those on rooftops. Of that 1%, it must prioritize the purchase of certificates from low-income projects for up to 1/4 of the small project certificates it purchases. This bill says is that if there aren't enough low-income projects available, Dominion will purchase certificates from school projects to meet the remaining quarter. That small quarter will make sure that schools receive payments for these valuable certificates This will help decrease the cost of schools to go solar, resulting in lower energy bills for schools and freeing up tax money for schools to invest in other priorities. It will also mean that schools can make the decision to go solar, which is something that many schools would like to do. I hear about it from people in my district.
Any questions of the patron? I see people standing. I don't know if there are folks out there who would like to speak in favor of the bill. Please come forward. You have 2 minutes.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Trias Lockwood, representing Madison Energy Infrastructure. We support the bill. We think it will help open up the doors for schools who choose to go solar. It's very simple. It has 2 parts. One is it includes a K-12 public schools definition, and the second part has to do with the distributed generation carve-out. It's 1%, with 25% going to low-income projects if they're available, and then if they're not available, the utility would look to solar school projects to comply. So we appreciate the patron bringing this, and thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam and Mr. Chair, and members of the subcommittee too. My name is Jim Puricow from Advanced Energy United. We support this bill as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Blair St. Olson with the Virginia League of Conservation Voters, and we support.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Christine Noonan on behalf of Dominion Energy, we support the bill. It doesn't change any requirements, just gives us another option to get to the same goal. Thank you.
Christina.
Mr. Chairman, Kyle Shreve on behalf of the Virginia Forestry Association. We also support the bill.
Madam Chairman, can I ask, what happens if you don't meet the requirements for the lower income investment now?
Senator Deeds.
I'm not sure I'm the one that can answer.
Let me turn to the attorney. Please give us an explanation.
Mr. Chair, Senator McDougall, the bill reads that to the extent that low-income qualifying projects are available, 25% of that 1% is required to be composed of low-income qualifying projects, so that requirement is already conditional on the availability of those projects. So that's already limited in that way.
Senator McDougall, does that?
Madam Chairman, so just make sure I'm reading that. So if the low income projects are not available, there's no additional penalty. So you're not picking up any new penalty by allowing this to meet that requirement.
That's correct.
Okay.
Senator McDougall, further question? That's it. Would there be those who would speak in opposition to the bill, or are there more people who would like to speak in favor of the bill? Which? We have somebody online. Please bring them in.
Shane Riddle, please speak.
Please turn your camera on.
Hello, Madam Chair. This is Shane Riddle with the Virginia Education Association.
Thank you, Shane.
VEA
Turn your
strongly
camera.
supports
I know
this
who you are. Turn your camera on. We want to see your face.
Camera's on.
I don't see it.
My camera is
Oh, there
on.
is. I see. Oh, I see you now, Shane.
Madam Chair, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
Third person. VEA supports this bill strongly. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else online? Others speak in favor before we bring up those in opposition? There's a motion and a second that the bill be reported. Please open the roll. D-Staff?
Ayes 15, no 0.
Ayes 15, no 0, the bill is reported. Senator Deeds, you have now Senate Bill 1199.
1199, thank you, ma'am. There's a substitute for this bill, and I'd move the substitute.
There's a motion and a second that the substitute be agreed to. All in favor, please say aye.
Okay, 1199 is the bill that we didn't report last week, but we reconsidered. And this is the bill that allows for open enrollment in Medigap, and the substitute includes the changes we talked about in the last meeting, striking the application provisions to group plans, a technical suggestion from the Board of Insurance, and extending the open enrollment period from 30 days to 60 days. The bill before you today limits the changes in plans to a lateral move. You can't have less coverage or more, honestly. As we discussed last week, Senate Bill 1199 requires an insurance company that issues Medicare supplements, Medigap or MedSup policies to offer an open enrollment period commencing on an individual's birthday and remaining open for at least 60 days thereafter. Otherwise, that's known as the birthday rule. The bill with the substitute we just adopted limits individuals to purchase a supplemental policy that offers the same benefits than those provided by the current coverage. The industry will tell you that the majority of people are satisfied with their plans. This simply provides an limited option for those seniors who are not.
Any questions of the patron? Anybody like to speak in favor of the bill? Come forward, please. You have 2 minutes.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
Good evening.
Jared Calfee, AARP, Virginia. As the Senator explained, when this bill came up before, there was concern about the provision that somebody could reduce their coverage and then they get stuck and want to go back up later and be medically underwritten. So the amendment makes it so that you can only move laterally in coverage. As the Senator said, most people are satisfied with their Medigap coverage, but we hear from folks a lot who are not, and they would like the opportunity to make changes to shop for lower premiums, or if they're unhappy with their customer service and want to make change. So 9 other states have done similar things to this birthday bill, and there's been no correlation found between those states and higher premiums for Medigap. So we think this is a very modest step forward for Virginia to give seniors some more freedom and opportunity to shop for better deals on their Medigap policies, and for those who are not satisfied with their coverage, that they're not stuck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come forward, ma'am.
Good evening, Chair, members of the committee. Emily Hardy with the Virginia Poverty Law Center, and for the reasons already stated, we support the bill.
Thank you. Doug?
Madam Chair, Doug Gray, on behalf of the Virginia Association of Health Plans. We didn't like this bill the first time, and we still don't like this bill. I mean, the practical reality is with the way Medicare works, you get one chance to have an open enrollment, and there's no health underwriting, and that's it. So these plans were built around you enrolling once, and that's it. Now, if you pass this bill, every year, there could be a move from one company's pool to another company's pool, including a commission paid, which is 20% in the first year, every time that happens, and then 10% each year thereafter. I know it's a sport here to tell people you can have something for nothing, but you cannot. This will cost more in the greater scheme of things, and it will stir up the pools. The whole point of Obamacare was to have stable pools, and this is basically blending the pool year after year after year when there's only one enrollment now. Thank you for letting me have my piece.
And Jeff, he used up all your time, so if you just let the...
Jeff Palmer on behalf of AHIP, what he said.
What he said. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions of Senator Deeds? Motion, please.
Madam Chair, I move to report.
There's a motion and a second that the bill be reported. Please open a roll.
Ayes 7, no 7, 1 abstention.
Ayes 7, no 7, 1 abstention. The bill is floundering.
It's on life support, and I accept that.
The bill does not report Senator Deeds.
1290 is a bill we also discussed last week. It's a bill that allows parity for reimbursement. I've got a substitute on it, I think.
Can I get a motion on the substitute, please? There's a motion and a second that the substitute be agreed to. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye.
Okay.
So can we get the substitute explained to us?
Clark, this is not the substitute that you brought. No, sir. It's a different one. What the bill does,
Senator Deeds,
it prohibits health insurance and health plan providers whose policies cover services that may be legally performed by physician assistants that deny reimbursement because the service is rendered by a physician assistant. We have added various provisions over the years. The substitute before you limits the reimbursement parity requirements to the provision of behavioral health services as defined in 37.2-100. Behavioral health services means the full range of mental health services and substance abuse services. The bill requires parity in reimbursement for claims of the same service, for the same diagnoses and procedure code. The bill limits or requires providers to be paid at the same rate as a physician for that particular diagnosis and procedure code, and prevents insurers from reducing the rates for physicians to comply with the provisions of this section. We're relying more than ever on every member of our healthcare workforce, and tiered reimbursement rates generally discourage providers from accepting insurance. if the committee has the inclination, that the SCC's advised me that this bill would need to go to HERC as it's a new mandate. I'm not sure that it is, and there's a more populated body, I think, where they've already advanced this bill. But
Any questions?
Sometimes they make
Senator- Senator Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For Senator Deeds, I'm not as familiar with 37.2-100, but you're paying any practitioner in subsection A the same rate as a licensed physician? And what kinds of people are we paying the same rate as a physician?
Senator Deeds.
generally, the people that I've heard from are counselors, licensed clinical social workers, people that are providing mental health services. The reality is about 70% of psychotropic medications are prescribed by general practitioners, not mental health professionals. And we've got shortages across the board for mental health professionals, and the lower reimbursement rates disincentivizes provision of services. And this bill is all about trying to figure out how to get more people involved in providing the services. So it could be a variety of people that provide those services.
Senator Evans.
So just to follow up, we're not going to reimburse like an LCSW at the same rate as a physician, are we?
Senator Deeds.
Well, I think if they provide the same services for a license for mental health, yes.
Thank
Further
you.
questions? Would there be those who'd like to come and speak? Please move forward.
Madam Chairperson, members of the
Turn the clock on, please.
committee. My name is Rebecca Catterley, and I represent the Virginia Counselors Association, along with the Council of Nurse Practitioners, Clinical Nurse Specialists, the Mental Health Consortium, and the Virginia Society of Clinical Social Workers. There is a shortage of mental health providers in Virginia, according to Mental Health of America. We are 38th in availability for providers. That's a big problem. We did a survey this year. 300 practitioners responded within 3 weeks, which is a lot of people to respond to a survey in 3 weeks. Out of those folks, 86% of those behavioral health providers said they'd already dropped or are planning to drop a type of insurance because of the reimbursement rates. And you'll find that out-of-network use, which is using a provider that's not covered by your insurance, for psychologists is 22% higher than it is for medical surgical benefits. So folks are having to go out of network to find a provider, which is more expensive, and it's prohibiting people from getting access to care if they can't afford a provider out of network. So thank you for considering this.
Please come forward. Yes.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Mark Smith, representing the Virginia Society of Clinical Social Workers and the Greater Washington Society of Clinical Social Workers, with members in Northern Virginia. We do support this
Thank you.
legislation.
Others speaking in favor? Is there anyone online? Opposition? Come on, Doug.
Madam Chair, Doug Gray, on behalf of the Virginia Association of Health Plans and members of the committee. If this goes to HERC, I think that would be an interesting thing to do to study it. I think the practical reality is without identified practitioners and exactly what we're trying to get to, it's going to be hard to administer from a practical perspective. I mean, the way this is written, it's basically anybody in the mandated provider section above, as long as they provide a mental health service. So you'll have to figure out which ones do and which ones
Can I
don't.
ask a question?
Senator Deeds.
The substitute that Clark offered me was one that limited it to the licensed clinical social workers. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and would that be acceptable to you?
I think it'd be easier to study and figure out how to do and from a payment perspective, because then you can figure out exactly which codes you're talking about and relating it to the concept.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the last substitute I saw was different than that one. So
Yeah, well, that.
Yep.
The
So
substitute for us is different.
yeah, and I just think practically trying to figure out specifically what we're after. I did notice that Medicaid was exempted. I mean, obviously, when we do a mandate of any type, we include the state health plan. I mean, if it's a good policy, it's good for everybody, and that's something that we try to work our way through when we do these studies. So I'm just trying to give you some background on it. That's pretty much what I got for you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Clark Barron with the Medical Society of Virginia. To Senator Evans' question, yes, This bill would require a licensed social worker to be reimbursed the same as a psychiatrist. It would also require a counselor, a marriage therapist, everything in that subsection A that you have before you. If a physical therapist, for whatever reason, offers substance abuse counseling, they will be reimbursed the same as a psychiatrist. This will incentivize hospitals to not hire physicians because they will make the same amount of money if they hire anyone else in that subsection A. So we do have concerns. We expressed them to the senator. I want to be clear. Y'all want to pay people who provide behavioral health services more money? Support. Absolutely. My sister is a counselor. She's underpaid. I agree. So I agree with the mission that you're trying to achieve. The language is written. We cannot support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Deeds.
Well, Madam Chair, the bill is as broad as it is because there's more than just licensed clinical social workers providing this service. And we are desperately short of providers. I'd like the bill to go forward the way it is, but if it has to go to HERC, I'd like it just to go to HERC the way it is and they can figure it out.
Is that a motion?
Well,
Mr. Chairman.
I would move the report, but I think the motion that's more likely to pass is a motion to pass the bill by indefinitely and then send it with a letter to HERC.
Madam Chairman. Yeah, Madam Chairman, I'll second that motion.
Senator Serval.
I'll second. I think Marsden made that motion. I'll second that motion. This is typically the kind of thing we hear in HERC about how to do reimbursements and all that. It's squarely.
Senator McPike.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the patient's work on this. This is something that is really important. There are a lot of moving mechanisms that we do need to figure out in HERC, but it overall impacts the entire system, and behavioral mental health is extraordinarily important. Appreciate Senator Deeds' work in this area.
Thank you. Senator Deeds, could you restate your motion?
Well, I think it was Marsden's motion.
Marsden's motion. Okay.
PBI with letter.
PBI, send to HERC.
With a letter to HERC.
The motion is that bill be PBI and that it goes to HERC. All in favor of that motion? We need a recorded vote.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 15, no zero. The bill is PBI.
Madam Chair.
With the letter going to HERC.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We're not done yet. Senator
Senator
Al-Rouse.
After voting on the prevailing side of which SB 1199 failed, I wish to reconsider the vote.
All in favor? For the bill to be reconsidered?
I abstain.
You can just
State the number again.
you can just change your vote with the clerk.
No, not if it
I
changes.
don't think that's the
Change
provision.
the outcome.
Oh, it changed the outcome? Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So SB 1199.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir. Senator McDougal.
I don't think abstention is on the prevailing side of that vote.
It is.
They've been using it all session. Strangely, yes.
I don't know who they is, but it's not a.
Marsden can do it then.
It's no,
Well, I've passed a motion on reconsideration of 771 at least a couple of times.
Madam Chairman, that's right. I think somebody who voted no could make that motion, but abstention is not a no vote.
Yes, it is.
Senator Marsden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we consider the vote, that we reconsider the vote on Senate Bill 1199.
You've heard the motion?
Having voted on the prevailing side.
And a second, having voted on the prevailing side, Senator Marsden moves that the vote by which Senate Bill 1199 failed to report be reconsidered. All in favor of that motion, please say aye first.
Aye.
Okay, now motion on the bill.
To reconsider.
Yeah, please open the roll. Now, may I have a motion on the bill?
Madam Chair.
Senator Rouse.
Let me explain my extension. So after reading the substitute, I am now abreast of what it actually means. And so now that I have more clear understanding, I wish to make a motion to report the bill.
Senator Rouse moves and Senator Dees second that Senate Bill 1199 be reported. Please open the roll.
Ayes 8, no 7.
Ayes 8, no 7. The bill reports with the substitute.
Okay.
Senator Dees, you have your gavel back.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next week, we're going to meet and take up the House bills. We plan to be done after about a half hour of deliberation, okay? Thank you.
Committee rise.
This is the Senate of Virginia.
Richmond, Virginia.